has clear tracking.
There it is.
Down.
So Jake Gagne pushing too hard in this one.
Oh, and Cam Peterson goes down. Turn number 1.
Oh, down he goes. It was just too much. It looked like he kind of rolled off the racetrack.
Holding onto this motorcycle.
He is surfing right now, trying to get that R1. Here he comes, Cameron Peterson, M4X Star Suzuki. He will take the checkered flag and the race win. How about that? You've landed on the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. It's MotoAmerica Superbikes at Alabama for our final round of 2021 from Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama. Hello everyone and welcome to HONOS Superbike race number 2 of the weekend, race number 1 of the day. I'm Greg White standing alongside two-time champ Jason Pridmore. Now Jason, yesterday was a wild ride. It was crazy weather, but we had a new race winner this year.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, you and I have been around this paddock a long time, and we continue to see things that we're not used to seeing. All 3 finishers yesterday end up on the podium. All went down during the race, and you can see this crazy start. Gagne did what we thought he normally would do. He's out front, leading, nobody behind him. He crashes in this area of the racetrack that we would see a number of crashes, and then Matthew Schultz and Cam Peterson got into a very heated battle, back and forth racing until Cam Peterson touches the white line on the inside of turn 1. He crashes, holds onto this motorcycle, and keeps it upright, gets back on the bike, only to find about, I don't know, Greg, 8 laps later, Matthew Schultz crashing on the exit of turn 4, slip and sliding all the way down to 5. Cam goes on to win the race. Matthew Schultz will pick it up and finish second. Loris Paz, who also fell over, ends up finishing third. Crazy day.
Crazy day. We had all of our podium finishers crash and pick the bike up. And yeah, there were over 10 crashes in the rain. And it snapped Jake Gagne's 16-race win streak. However, Jake Gagne, if he wins today or tomorrow, can break the tie all year long. But let's get down to Hannah Lopa, who has Cam Peterson after his first career Superbike win.
To remember. Yesterday's first race was definitely a race to remember for so many reasons. 3 of our podium finishers crashed at some point during the race, but as you mentioned, it was a career first victory for this guy, Cameron Peterson. Cam, do you think you'll be able to replicate yesterday's results in these little bit different conditions this morning?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope so. You know, it's I'm just going to treat today's race like it was yesterday. Obviously, the conditions are a lot more favorable for us, so I think it's going to be a good race, and honestly, I think it's going to have a pretty big dry line towards in the race. So once again, I think it's going to be just survival, making sure you bring the bike home, and you know, I still really do in the back of my mind, I've got the 3rd place in the championship that I want to lock up. So yeah, you know, make sure I bring the bike home, just race like I did yesterday, and then race 3 we'll give it all she's got.
Thanks, Cam. Best of luck out there. Now, another that we want to touch with quick before they get going, led yesterday's race, also but managed to pull off a second on the. It's called Matt. A little bit different out here right now. How does that change things for you, if at all?
It's looking a hell of a. Those things. I finished second, so happy with that. And today, it's definitely drier than it was. We have a pretty good setup. During the morning warm-up, we ended up second quicker, so I hope you try to put it back up behind the box today.
Well, best of luck out there, and guys, yesterday's race was proof that anything could happen. We'll have to see how things shake out in this one.
All right, well, sorry for the audio there. It's definitely wet out there still, but what are you going to do? Let's take a look at the cargo track hotspots, Jason, because there are plenty of opportunities for people to pass here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Absolutely. Turn 1, you see that white paint on the inside. That's what Cam hit yesterday, so he'll be looking to avoid that. Down here into turn 5, Charlotte's Web, famous place here. We see a lot of passing, overtaking, things going on down there. Really important to get through there cleanly on the first couple of laps while the groups of riders are packed together. Then we go over to turns 11 and 12, Greg, a blind entry, fast left into this right, goes up over the top of a rise into those very important long right-hand corners. Then we get towards the end of the lap here, coming onto the front straightaway. We will see some passes on the inside there. A cambered last corner that leads right across the start-finish line that you see right there.
Doesn't matter if it's in the wet or dry, it is a good place to pass. But let's take a look at the overview of Barber Motorsports Park. Jason, it goes clockwise and has 17 turns.
Yeah, it certainly does, Greg. And this place is a rider favorite. Down into turn 1, like you saw just now on that onboard shot. Turns 2 and 3, very elevated. Turn 4, normally wide open in the dry. Maybe on these bikes, they might be creeping out of it a little bit down into Charlotte's Web. Turn 8 has been the corner that we're going to have to watch. We saw a lot of incidents there yesterday as well as out of 11. Turns 12 and 13, tricky corners. Then those long series of rights that you can take a number of different ways into turn 17. And then you're hoping that when you come out of there, there's nobody that's going to give you a run to that flag.
Cannot wait to see what this race has in store for us. And what about Jake Gagne, who's been dominant all season? He was real fast in the morning warm-up. We'll have more when we come back. 10 minutes from race start.
All right, Roger Hayden, I'm Robbie Floyd. We got our little time to discuss these guys as they're doing the national anthem.
Bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Barber Motorsports Park, let's get ready for the...
All right, now Roger Hayden, got a little bit here as I wasn't prepared for that national anthem popping out there. And again, thank the fans for being here and supporting MotoAmerica. There's Jake Lewis, one to look for, another one of those riders on a stock 1,000 that might get up there, a top 5. Maybe he could get a podium today.
Also him, Superbike Cup champion this year.
Yes, that's right, Superbike Cup champion, stock 1,000 champion. Trying to maybe get back into the HONOS Superbike class full-time once again. Ashton Yates starting 4th today. He was one spot away from maybe making a podium. What a way to end the year if he could do that.
Oh, that would be great to see him on the podium, especially the last couple races, leading the stock races for a while and ended up getting second. Yesterday missed the podium on the last lap. Another guy to look for, Corey Alexander yesterday, worked his way up into 3rd with a couple laps to go.
A lot of guys to look for today, and you see the one leading the field, Cam Peterson. A little bit of a yawn on the start straight. He's trying to relax himself and get ready for it's going to be a battle. The track will be starting to dry out if it doesn't rain, though, Raj. I mean, it's something we have not seen yesterday, constant rain. There's probably going to be a dry-ish line if these guys are hauling.
And a couple corners, maybe like turn 2.
Turn 2, one to look for. Again, it's the final race, well, the first race of 2 today here in HONOS Superbike.
Today's Superbike coverage is sponsored by Geico Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car or motorcycle insurance. By Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. And by Medallia, the pioneer and market leader in customer and employee experience.
Welcome back to Barber Motorsports Park. We're about 6 minutes away from a race start for HONOS Superbike race number 2 of the weekend. And you can see that it's pretty cloudy out there. The track is completely wet. But we want to talk about next season, Jason, because here's a look at the schedule that was announced just a couple days ago. It looks a lot the same that we've had. Road Atlanta, VIR, then to Road America. We go to the Ridge, Laguna, Brainerd again, which is great. Pit Race, New Jersey, and Barber. Now, a note, Road America is a week earlier, and there's a separation between these two. But the good news is we get to go back to COTA in April in support of MotoGP.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We know these guys are coming to America here in a week or 2, and we get to go back there in April at our normal dates, so it'd be good to get back to COTA with a full weekend of racing.
Jason, we are excited about that. That'll be the HONOS Superbike class. That'll be in support of MotoGP at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. But also big announcement a couple days ago. MotoAmerica will be at Daytona running the Daytona 200. It's not a championship paying class. That's why you didn't see it on the schedule. This is a one-off event. March 11th through the 13th, we're going to have the Daytona 200, which will be a super sport class. We'll have baggers and Twins Cup. JP, you excited to go back to Daytona?
I'll tell you, when MotoAmerica announced this, and I've talked to Kyle Wyman as you see him coming across the line here doing some testing on the bagger, but when MotoAmerica announced this, my social media feeds blew up from everywhere around the world. I've got people all over the place that are wanting to come and be part of the Daytona 200. It's great that it's a one-off race. I think that we're going to see teams from England and other places coming over. There's a lot of people that are interested in getting on the high banks.
All right, when we come back, we're going to get this race going. We're about 4 minutes away. Don't go anywhere. HONOS Superbike on the horizon.
Well, it is good to see Max Flinders on the starting line. He looked like he wasn't feeling so hot after slamming down in the morning warm-up. There is Corey Alexander on the Hudson Valley HONOS Kawasaki. Can he work his way up through the field? A man who was challenging for the Superbike Cup and Stock 1000 championships throughout the year. And he's had a rough couple of weeks. But, again, these guys, these bikes, I wouldn't count anybody out. We saw Loris Baz go from the back to the front to the back to the front all in one race.
After watching yesterday's race, nothing would surprise me today, all the different things we've seen. But for Corey yesterday, came mid-race, worked his way up to the podium. Also, Kyle Wyman was having a great race yesterday, put himself in podium contention and had a mistake in the last corner. So it's going to be interesting to see these first couple laps. I think people are going to try to figure out what the track conditions are, and from there we're going to see what's going to happen in the second half.
And if things do start drying out and they're having to put more brake pressure on that bike, I'm looking at Loris Baz when he come off the track yesterday, went straight for the ice pack on the hand. There's something not quite right with that hand and or wrist. Physically, how's he doing? Because we saw it yesterday. He was in pain. Yeah,
he was in pain, but with the track conditions the way it is, when it's wet like this, it's probably going to work into his favor a little bit. It's a little easier on the body when you're riding in the wet if you're trying to nurse an injury.
Well, as it looks like they're getting ready to take their sighting lap, let's send it down to Jason Wygand, trackside.
This is so hard for the teams and the folks from Dunlop Tires to figure out right now. There was some theory in the morning that maybe a dry race line would develop through all our warm-up sessions. They say it's too humid for that. There were some teams that were considering maybe going with slicks. Everyone decided to stay with the rain tires, but as the folks from Dunlop say, it's too wet for slicks and it's too dry for rain tires. So tire management on these rain tires on a track that's just a little bit damp is probably going to be one of the big keys to this race.
And Roger, thank you, Jason. Roger, the temp that these tires are going to build, that's what you're trying to keep away from, but there's no puddles to really help cool it down today.
Yeah, there's no puddles, but you can see, look at the spray. This track is still pretty wet. This is turn 2. This is the one we're talking about. Could we seen a dry line yesterday starting in this corner before all the other ones?
Softer compound. Also, there's not as much rubber touching the ground there.
The dry lines right there on the exit. Yep. Starting with all these bikes, it's not going to take long for a really dry line through that long right-hander. Going to have to be careful through there on these rain tires are really soft, not to burn them up.
That's another one right here, too, coming down into 5. Everybody wants to take, within reason, that same line making in this left-hand turn.
But a lot of the track, too, you'll see like there's big puddles, so it's going to be a lot. This is going to be, these riders are going to have to pay attention. The track's going to change every single lap.
Again, something to look for, the tires, the management. Will somebody try and get out in front and check out? We didn't see much of that. We saw a couple of packs of riders. Will we have a Stock 1000 be up there near the front being competitive? Because we've got Yates, Lewis, on that second row that could really put on a hard charge, as well as Danny Eslick. So don't count him out. Go to start 6 as well. We get ready for HONOS Superbike coming up now from Barber.
HONOS Superbike riders on their warm-up lap as we're getting ready for a 17-lap race. It has been declared a wet race, Jason, so the track is definitely got moisture in it, but it can be really crazy conditions. Now, this is how they finished in the race yesterday. Cameron Peterson, who won, is on pole, then Skoltz and Baz.
Yep, and then we have Ashton Yates, Jake Lewis, and yes, Danny Eslick on the outside of row 2 and 6. David Anthony, Hector Barber, and Josh Herron are going to be in row 3. Bobby Fong, Gagne, and Gilbert coming from row number 4. Then we're going to have Ferris, Kyle Wyman, Giannato, Cam Sook, Danilo Lewis, and Corey Alexander on the outside of row 6. Travis Wyman, Aguilar, and Perk. So there's going to be a number of guys trying to get to the front here, Greg. They're coming from a little bit further back on the grid than what we're normally seeing. You heard Skoltz pre-race say the conditions are way better than yesterday, and that is simply because it's not lashing rain. So the track is very, very wet, but we don't have that big onslaught of storm like we had yesterday at the start of the race.
Couple riders here chomping at the bit. No doubt Loris Baz, who is not 100%. His throttle hand is hurting his wrist area, as well as Jake Gagne is chomping at the bit, trying to come from 11th spot and get his 17th win of the season. Clutches are out. We're away racing. Cameron Peterson with a good launch, but position goes to Matthew Skoltz up the inside, bending it into turn number 1. Going to run out of racetrack right there. You definitely want to stay away from those paint lines. So Cam Peterson, M4 X-Star Suzuki, will lead us over Westby Racing's Matthew Skoltz, and right there, Loris Baz with a good start on the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York Panigale.
Yeah, we know these three all have a little bit of history, so I think that with these conditions, we'll see how they handle as far as the close racing goes and all that. We want to see good, tight racing. Jake Lewis back there does have 4th. Gagne already up to 5th. You see Barber making a move under Ashton Yates there for that 5th spot. Kyle Wyman, what a start he has had, Greg, to come from the back of the grid all the way up to 6th place already. So the Panera Bread Ducati is got himself in a good spot early.
Lead change as Matthew Skoltz takes over the point over Cameron Peterson. So Skoltz trying to set sail. And Jay, talking to Loris Baz, who's in 3rd place, about his day yesterday. Keep in mind, he only did a couple of laps on Friday, then he crashed, he missed qualifying, so they don't have a dry setup, period. And so he needs these conditions for the Ducati. The only time he really has learned Barber Motorsports Park was in the race yesterday.
Yeah, well, he did 4 laps, like you say, Friday morning was all he got in. So he was learning the track as he was rolling around yesterday. You heard him post-race say he didn't even know he finished 3rd. He was still learning the racetrack as he went. So he had yesterday morning. And the hardest thing right now for Loris is, like you alluded to earlier, he's not 100%. He tipped off right out of this corner on Friday and kind of looked like he got high-sided off the inside of the bike, ended up on the outside of this corner here on the entry. So it was very odd. And you can see Gagne now is closing the gap to these front 3 guys as they come across. Skoltz, Peterson, Baz, and Gagne, your 4 leaders.
And yesterday, there were a lot of crashes, no question, but there was also a huge learning curve for all these teams. It had been quite a while since MotoAmerica has had a race in the rain like that. And so these teams were learning, as were the riders, in terms of limits. But the one thing in talking to all these HONOS Superbike riders, everyone was saying that this track provides tremendous grip in the rain. It was just those puddles of standing water that was really causing the biggest problem yesterday. Loris Baz a little wide coming out of turn number 6.
Cam got in there just a little bit deep, it looked like, and had to kind of close his line on the way in and keep the bike upright for longer to slow the motorcycle down. That's why you see that gap now, tiny one as it is, between him and Skoltz. He just got in there a little bit deep, couldn't turn the bike, so he had to stand the bike upright, use a little bit more brake while the bike was up and down to get the thing slowed down, and that's what he did. These 2 guys raced so close yesterday, Cam Peterson and Matthew Skoltz. They went back and forth. The track was very raceable. And also, Greg, if it gets just a little bit of a breeze, with the undulation here at Barber, the track does get a dry line pretty quickly, or drier line.
Drier line, yeah, at this point. Yeah, and of course, no sunshine at the moment and high humidity, with it probably being about 99%. Just waiting to rain at some point is not going to really dry this track out anytime soon. However, you know, this is going to be 15 laps to go, and we're going to be keeping an eye on a dry line. Hannah?
Well, in talking to Skoltz, he said yesterday was really the first time racing on the softer package that they had from the start of 2020. Not a lot of time to set things up prior to this weekend, as you mentioned. From yesterday, just some small chassis changes. They softened the torque and changed TC target slightly, but overall, he was pretty happy with the bike's performance in the wet. You know, we were talking about lines, and he knows he needs to choose the right lines that'll maximize time, but also safety. Obviously, there's not as much pulling on the track today, but he wants to keep it upright, and he thinks he can go for a win. He knows he has a good pace in these mixed conditions as well.
Yeah, and that's really, you know, an important thing is what information he brought back for the team. A challenge for second place as Baz goes down the inside of Cameron Peterson on the brakes into Charlotte's Web, turn number 5. So now Baz is going to try to set sail after Schultz.
That move came from a long way back. Baz was very defiant on where he wanted to put that Ducati, Greg, and got it up underneath Cam Peterson. You can see Cam falling back just a little bit. You almost wonder if there was any changes made to try to make the bike a little bit more suitable for him, because I would expect Cam to be right there up at the front as he's hooking it back up underneath Baz as they come out of that museum corner, not quite able to make it. But with the track drying as well, the speeds will be a little quicker. Look at Cam, he's having a look as they get ready to go down into this very tricky little turn 12-13 section. Not quite close enough there. But Baz made that move from a long way back, so he's starting to really get accustomed with this place.
14.5 laps to go in this race. Loris Baz in second place. We're looking at him right now on that Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York Panigale V4R. Direct support from the factory in Bologna and plenty of information available for them in terms of how to set up this Ducati in rain conditions. Of course, the difference is that no information until yesterday was provided for Dunlop tires. Here comes Cameron Peterson. He's trying to get a good drive and outbrake Loris Baz. As Baz was telling me too, Jason, that was the first time on Dunlop reins for him. He's been on a variety of tires in the course of his career, and he said that he was so pleased with the amount of grip that the Dunlop tires provided him. It's just a matter of him getting more used to the feel, especially on the front.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you think he's trying to still learn this place. You know, in the dry, he only got 4 laps, like we said. He's learning it as he goes and going as fast as he is in the wet. So you can see here now Schultz is just disappearing. He was 1.5 seconds quicker than that of Baz on the last lap. And right now, Baz is trying his best to get a little bit further away from Cam Peterson. Gagne all the while kind of sitting there watching what's going on. But it looked like there's some distinct places where, again, Cam is really, really good, and he draws back up on the back of that Ducati. Then there's other places where he doesn't quite have the confidence to go with Baz. But you can see Schultz is disappearing off into the distance.
Sore all over. And Jason, yesterday talking to Loris Baz, he said he still feels sore all over, but the bike, he feels no worse on the bike than he felt yesterday. So, I mean, obviously it's not getting any worse, which is important. The front row start definitely made his life a lot easier. He was really happy about not having to start last today. He would prefer full rain over these mixed conditions, but he knows he'll still have the pace to try to make it all the way to the end. As far as bike setup goes, some small changes in warm-up. Still working on some small things, but the bike felt fast yesterday. Ultimately, he just wants to be calm and be patient until the end of this race.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Hannah. And I'm sure they're making adjustments every time out just because it's so new. So, and as far as the injuries go, sometimes it's easier to ride a bike, Greg, than it is to just stand around or walk around. And some of the injuries he has, once he gets out there right now, he just knows he's got to do his job, get through these races, get through these laps. He's got 2 of them today. And like you can see this dry line. See how quickly it's starting to get dry now as they exit that turn 3 area. So that'll also put different forces on his injuries. Sometimes when we ride in the wet, the thing that we have to do the thing that's most taxing is just the mental side of it. Look how good he is getting down in there. Although he runs a little bit wide, he'll be able to square that up. But he gains a lot of time going down into that Charlotte's Web area, does Baz.
Loris Baz trying to figure out how to reel in Matthew Schultz, who is 4.5 seconds ahead of him at the moment. Gagne put on a great run at the beginning, Jason. You got to just think for the Fresh and Lean Attack Performance Yamaha, he obviously doesn't feel like he's got the speed to get by these 2 riders and go after the leader, at least not right now. But for Jake Gagne, that 17th win is just hanging out there. But,
it is.
You know, maybe this is a strategy of Gagne. Of course he wants to win the race, but he also knows that this race result is going to set the grid for the next race. So if he can finish in 4th, he's going to start from row number 2 and then give it another go, plus get all this information on what the track's doing. Because the forecast for this afternoon's race, the final race of the season, rain.
Yeah, and you know, the consecutive laps led that Gagne had was so impressive, and he was doing it again yesterday. He wasn't going to let anybody lead, and then he had a small slide off like we saw. But when you think about it, this is all new territory for Jake Gagne. He hasn't been behind very many people as they are coming up on Heron. Heron must have started on slicks. Heron's got
Yes.
is he out there on
Yeah,
slicks?
you can
is he?
even see
Yes.
it, yeah.
So you could tell he's on slicks. I was thinking, why are we catching up to Heron so early? But yeah, that's going to be a kind of a mistake here because it's just too wet early. You're going to give up way too much track position. But
I know the idea,
man, how
though.
brave. How
Yeah,
brave.
absolutely.
I mean, for Josh Heron to be doing that right now, pretty brave to be sticking it out there. If it's not raining, a lot of times these guys will start to think, and they know how quickly this place dries up. But right now, it's just still a little bit too wet.
So those are the riders in front. Yeah, 100% slicks. You can see, listen, he's already done a few laps, and you still have that line
brave.
on it. Yeah,
yeah, you got to give him credit. You know, you got to take chances like that sometimes at the end of the season. If it starts to get a little bit drier, you would hope that by the time you see maybe 8 laps to go, that the track has a distinct dry line. The only problem with that, Greg, is that it's sometimes if the dry line starts to appear, as you can see, Gagne was able to get past Cam Peterson. Cam Peterson was underneath Heron down in turn 1 and almost just ran up alongside Heron, but it allowed Gagne to get through. But even when the track starts to get that dry line, you have to go off that dry line to pass, and on slicks that can be difficult too.
Now look, we've been coming here since 2003, Jason, and when there's a bit of a breeze, a bit windy, this track dries really
100%.
quickly. Hannah's told us that it's not breezy at all down there. So the risk that Heron was taking by putting those slicks on, if all of a sudden the wind picked up, Heron would have looked like a hero.
He would have.
Because with enough time left, he can reel in some people like in chunks of 10 seconds at a time with slicks on a dry track versus these softer rain tires.
You can still see how much water is coming up off the tires, though. Even with these 3 going down that front straightaway, you can see that there's still a fair amount of water on the ground. And so, you know, for Josh, it was a good gamble. It was a good try. And like you said, if it had been a little bit breezy, but even through here, you can see it starting to dry. You can see the riders getting a little bit more confident, leaning the bikes over. So there'll be places where he'll be fine, but the places where it isn't will be very sketchy.
And with the line starting to dry and the track conditions getting better and better, even with the full Dunlop rain tires we have on there, we're seeing lap times dropping. Matthew Skoltz just came by the stripe. Fastest lap of the race now at a 38.1. 38.7s for Baz and Gagne.
And if you watch what Baz does there, he gets into Charlotte's Web very early. That's going to allow him to run the bike out a little bit. There is some water out there, so he's going to be able to cool the tires off towards, I'd say probably in the next 4 or 5 laps. If you start to see a distinct dry line, most of these guys will start to look for that little bit of moisture to try to get these tires a little bit cooled off. And we're starting to see that dry line more and more as they go around. Even down through here, you'll start to see the color of the pavement start to change. I talked to Matthew Skoltz last night. He was in a great mood, surprisingly. And one of the things that we talked about on the telecast yesterday is when it gets so wet, Greg, sometimes you can't tell what's an actual puddle to what is just wet. And it's exactly what he said happened. He says, Jays, that the hardest part was couldn't really see the puddles. You could feel them underneath you, but you couldn't really see them. But you could see the concentration in his eyes today.
Matthew Skoltz out wide into a deeper puddle than he's been in, and then he hit the deck.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we talked about even off throttle, how much the rear tire was still spinning. And he was talking about how the bike was backing in spots simply because there was just no grip. The bike was still just rolling around. The rear wheel was just rolling around and creating it to where the bike was really uncomfortable underneath him. But man, this bike looks so good right now. Just watching him ride around here looks very simple for him, and he has opened up 6.2 seconds, Greg. Still the fastest rider on the track, 38.2 that last time by. The other guys are all in the 38s as well, but with a gap of almost 7 seconds, Matthew will be able to manage that, and he's getting a really good look today. There's not as many puddles. He's going to be able to visualize a lot more of where he wants his motorcycle to go. Like you say, in the dry, we can do that, and he's starting to see that now.
Matthew Skoltz, legendary for a 2017 win here at Barber Motorsports Park when we had Superbikes and stock thousands racing at the exact same time on the track. And in conditions similar to this, Matthew Skoltz was able to take a win in the Superbike class on a stock thousand. Jason, we often see taller riders really just enjoy riding in the rain, or fast riders, the tall ones. Do you think that being tall has anything to do with being a good rain rider?
Well, I'm sure there's been some guys that aren't as tall that would tell me that they love riding in the rain, but being a little bit taller allows you to get that knee on the ground a little bit sooner, feel for that pavement a little bit earlier. You can use your size to your advantage, sometimes a little bit better, a little bit easier. It's one of the biggest reasons why these guys will use rain pucks. A lot of people will use rain pucks, and that the puck will be a little bit thicker so that you'll be able to, if you look at Gagne even here, he's got a little bit thicker knee pucks, and what that allows him to do is get that knee on the ground and get that confidence a little bit more. You almost feel like it can start to pivot around the motorcycle more. But I do agree, even some of the taller guys, I think, do feel like it's a bit of an advantage.
And Jason, as Gagne is looking to reel in the likes of Loris Baz, I talked to him yesterday. There's been so much conversation about this win streak that he had going on and all these different records. And to be honest, Jake said he's not really keeping track of any of that. He just wants to go out and enjoy this. The championship title has been won. He's so happy to have achieved that. Anything else after that, he said, is just kind of like the cherry on top. It's an extra bonus. As far as today's races go, he just wants to do a good job. He wants to go out there and do what he knows how to do, and he's doing exactly that right now.
Yeah, and he is doing well. And Jason, we were talking about this after the race was over yesterday. When's the last time this season we saw no fresh and lean attack performance Yamaha on the podium?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
We almost have to think, even going into last year and the years prior, when was the last time we haven't seen a bike from that stable up on the podium, like you say? So I agree. It was very odd, and but for Jake right now, these conditions, he's won, like Hannah said, he's won the championship. The last thing you want to do is do anything silly at the last race of the season, ding yourself up. He's had a tremendous year, and these conditions are something that our riders in America don't get to see very often. So, and some of the tracks that we go to are different as far as level of grips. Barber, as we can see here, level of grip looks really, really nice. And but yesterday, it was just, there was so much standing water. That's why we saw so many incidents.
And even with Jake Gagne talking about his year that he spent in World Superbike, that time he never actually raced in a wet race in World Superbike. So as far as Jake Gagne is concerned, he thinks the last time he raced in the rain was that 2017 race.
Yeah. Yep. Again, you see the two differences in lines there between Baz and Gagne. Baz starts to pull away a little bit here from Gagne, 38.7. Last lap through for Loris Baz, 39 flat. So there wasn't much in it, but on this lap here, that first couple sectors, he's already pulled out just a little bit away from Gagne. And you can see Cam Peterson's just dropped back a little bit further. Cam circulating in the high 39s. Jake Lewis, shout out to him real quick, still running in that top 5 Superbike Cup competitor.
So here we are. We have 7.5 laps to go. Matthew Skultz 6 seconds ahead of Loris Baz, who chipped away a little bit at Skultz's lead last time by, took a second back. Then you have Gagne in third, Cameron Peterson in fourth, Jake Lewis, the first of our Stock 1000 competitors, and your newly crowned Superbike Cup champion in 5th place over Ashton Yates, Kyle Wyman in 7th, then Bobby Fong, Hector Barbera, Corey Alexander, Gilbert Anthony, Travis Wyman, Giannato, and Jason Aguilar in his return to racing this season on a Superbike in 15th place.
Good look at Jake Gagne coming onto the front straightaway. Let's see if he's able to match the time of Baz. Baz that time again, 38.6. So almost another half second Baz was able to pull away. But Gagne will keep charging, Greg. He's not going to obviously give this up without giving it a bit of a fight and trying to get back up on the back of Baz on that Ducati. But this is the spot where he loses some time. Now I want you to watch how Baz gets into Charlotte's Web. He'll line up on the right side of the track, almost diagonal line, almost like try to apex this thing early. Gets down there on the wet, lets it run out a little bit, gets it on the wet part of the track there, and he just doesn't ever really get to a big steep lean angle, and he pulls away quite a lot from the guys that have been behind him in that little section. So it's almost like he's not braking as deep and letting the bike run a little bit more, carrying a little bit more roll speed.
Oh, we saw some spots on the lens there, Jay.
Yeah.
Not sure, maybe it's rain starting to fall in that corner. Now, there's Jake Lewis, Jason. So as this track is drying out, we take a look at Jake Lewis on the Altus Motorsports Suzuki GSX-R 1000. Jake Lewis, what a year. We've talked about it. He was on the couch at the beginning of the season. Nice, svelte 200 pounds. And
I'm sure he loves it. We keep mentioning that,
he mentioned it in his post on Instagram. Yeah. And for Lewis, he was able to wrap up the Stock 1000 Championship, second in a row for Altus. And, yeah, now you can see the rain falling. And for some of the riders out here, Jason, I was going to talk about, with a drying line in these rain tires, riders started to search for a little bit of water to try to keep it cool. But now with the rain falling, at least in part of the track, that's going to be, as weird as it sounds, it's it's kind of a good thing for these racers and to get a little bit more moisture in this track for these rain tires.
Yeah, well, we've seen races where if the sun really peaked out right now and it got to the point where the sun was beating down on the track, that dry line would become a lot more apparent. Right now, I don't think these guys have anything to worry about with 6 to go. It's going to stay somewhat wet, even though dry lines are appearing. But you're exactly right, Greg. Looking for those damp spots to cool the tires off is definitely a benefit.
And Jason, as Greg mentioned, despite missing out on last season, Jake Lewis has been so consistent all year long, especially this weekend in these mixed conditions. It seems almost like he hasn't put a wheel wrong. I caught up with him just to kind of see where he's at. It's silly season. There's a lot of conversation about what potentially could happen for next year. I said, if you had any choice of what you could do, what would you want to do? And he said, I'd love to be back on a Superbike, but I'm not opposed to coming back and defending my Stock 1000 and Superbike Cup titles.
Well, Hannah, I think that the biggest thing there is that Jake's just so happy to be back in the paddock, and we all love having him back. I think you got to give a huge shout out to this whole Altus Motorsports team as well, Greg. I mean, they've won back-to-back championships now in that Stock 1000 class. They have a tremendous rider in Cam Peterson, who we've seen now go on and do good things in Superbike. Jake Lewis, who we remember was on a Superbike at one time, got injured, and that's why we got to see Tony Elias come back and race here in America. But Jake Lewis has definitely recommitted himself, been back on the winning ways, and it'd be good to see him back. And how about Ashton Yates, Greg? Another good weekend for Ashton on the Honda. He's running 6th. He still has Lewis within just up the road of him by 2 seconds, 3 seconds?
Yeah. And Ashton Yates is on that Honda CBR 1000 RR SP. And he is doing a great job on that motorcycle, flying the flag for Honda this year. And Ashton Yates, who was our #1 Stock 1000 finisher yesterday, in 5th spot. And how about this guy, Kyle Wyman, on that One Cure Panera-bred Ducati. He was in 3rd place yesterday, though, Jason, then had a get-off. And Kyle Wyman is, from what I heard, is not 100%. He's bruised up a little bit. Yeah, bruised up in some spots that we don't want to probably be bruised up into. So, that definitely hurts. And we saw him in the last corner yesterday. So really happy to see Kyle up and going. We see Bobby Fong a little bit better than yesterday for Bobby as well. We've got Kyle Wyman just in front of him there for Bobby Fong. Fastest lap of the race. It's a couple seconds off what the fast guys up at the front are doing. But for this guy, it's all about just getting that confidence going in these conditions.
Well, Jason, for Kyle being unable to finish yesterday's race, it put him much farther back on the grid than he hoped to be, so he recognizes that this race sets the grid for this afternoon. He was looking to get ahead early, but he said if he wasn't able to, then just to be patient and let it come. As far as the bike goes, they made no changes at all. It was working pretty well yesterday. Gearing is good, electronics were solid, so he thinks he has the pace. It's just a matter of being safe in the beginning and really trying to work his way through the pack here.
Yeah, he got a great start today, Hannah, and put himself up there pretty quickly. So now it's just getting these laps in. And boy, Greg, it would sure be nice if we had a dry race later on. But these guys have seen all these conditions just so different from Friday to now. Looks like we might have a red flag on track. Yeah, I saw the lights just go off in front of our booth here. So not sure what that's for. We've got 5 laps to go.
So 12. Completed. It's wildlife on the track.
Oh, man.
So we're not sure what wildlife, but that's
probably
what we're told.
Deer, yeah.
It could be. I know I can see geese in the area as well. But wildlife on the track has slowed things down in this one. So red flag out, and that's going to stop racing. And now MotoAmerica has a decision to make. There are rules in place that say percentage of the race complete. The race is complete. But, at this point, Jay, with a 17-lap race, or do we have 12 in the books or not? That's the question. Or was it 11 completed laps by the rest of the field? So the decision has been made, and now the race is complete. And that means that Matthew Skults is going to take his 2nd victory of the season. Uncontested Matthew Skults after the first lap or 2. And he's going to wrap it up. Loris Baz is going to finish in 2nd place. And Jake Gagne will hold on to 3rd. Cameron Peterson, 4th. Jake Lewis in 5th spot over Ashton Yates.
Well, I tell you, I can't be happier for this guy. Matthew Skults has deserved another win this year.
Yesterday, what?
I mean, yeah, and,
right?
And he told me, he says, Jay, I just want to get back out there tomorrow, try to win a race for these guys. And he's just kind of finding out now that he's won this race And you could look at his race pace, Greg, 38s, really consistent 38s, and just grinding out those laps. To be honest, it looked like he was just controlling this race. Once he got to that 6-second lead, he was just controlling it, doing a little goon riding
Little
now.
goon riding.
Yep, he's going to be happy. And I can tell you, Chuck Cicchetto and that whole Westby team are going to be super pumped for him.
Dominated this race.
Yeah, he did.
He really did. Once he got out front and got clear of Cameron Peterson, he put his head down, and what a run for the South African who lives in Georgia. I think about 2 hours away from here. Matthew Skoltz with his second win. Keep in mind, he won the first race of the season when Jake Gagne's engine expired, and he was the best rider behind Gagne at the moment. It was early on in that race.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
And so really, this whole Southeast thing has proven really good for the Westby team. Of course, Road Atlanta might be their home race, and Barber is a close second. All right, we'll step away. When we come back, we're going to hear from Matthew Skoltz about his dominating race win.
All right, Matty Skoltz with that victory, and he just now got the word that it is complete. He did not know. He knew there was a red flag, and they're going to restart. And I think he might have saw the deer is what we're thinking, because we heard it came through 12, went out in 14. We didn't hear what that was. But you saw them talking to each other like they might have seen something. And you've had that happen here before, Roger Hayden.
Yeah, in the warm-up before, I've seen a deer run across the track. And then last year with Rocco Landers in turn 2, they've seen a deer run across the track. So when you have an animal like a deer out there, it is so dangerous on these bikes. It could be really bad, so he did the right thing.
And typically in deer, and you know this, it's not just one. There's oftentimes multiples. And the thing with Rocco, there were a couple that came across at the same time, and it's just getting that time of year. But Matty Skoltz takes that second victory, and there's still one more race to go. So, yeah, he is talking about it. He saw it. So that high pucker factor for Matty Skoltz. And I think those front three might have all seen it, because they were all kind of talking to each other like, did you see that?
But luckily it wasn't like a really close race. Matt put his head down early, checked out, and was just quicker than the other guys today and looked smooth.
Gagne was within a second of Baz. I thought he had a chance. But then also, they can call it complete, or they could actually do a restart. That has to be a question for the race director. You and I both looked at each other going, are they going to restart this thing? Because they could have if they wanted to.
They could have, but it was also they reached a limit where they can call the race as well. So for them, I think it was a close race. They might have restarted it.
And we have one more race. If this was the last race of the year, they might have done it. But when we know these guys got to re-rack, restack, catch their breath, work on their bikes, and get back out there a little bit later on. They're the last race of the year, the last race of the day here today.
It's going to be interesting, too, to see what happens this afternoon. If it's going to dry out more, we're going to see more of a 50-50 like it is now, or, it's supposed to rain this afternoon. So it's going to be interesting to see. Good
job for Matty. He come up one shy yesterday, and he was asking for the red flag yesterday in the rain. He got it today. And we wanted to point out, too, you had a night to think about it. We didn't talk about it yesterday, but back in the old days, or the AMA racing, the leader would be the guy that would ask for a red flag. If he saw something dangerous, or the weather or whatever, he would raise his hand, basically being the guy saying, hey, I think this should stop now.
Yeah, and now with MotoAmerica taking over, it's up to race control, and which is a good idea, because, when the leader's calling for a red flag, it's not –
seems fishy.
It's not the best look, but, it used to be if the couple front runners were raising their hand, they would do the red flag. But I like it better with putting it in race control's hand.
Yeah, it's a unbiased opinion. You've got a rider representative. You've got the race control guys there. Let them make that decision.
You can maybe raise your hand once just to get them to maybe look at it, but not every lap.
Absolutely. He's talking about Loris Baz. He's looking at that back end wanting to get away from him. And with the track drying out, in the very start we saw that Josh Herron was on slicks when we're like, okay, this could get interesting, but it wasn't. I mean, he was down before he knew it. It was way too wet. He took the chance. I don't blame him for doing that.
Yeah, he took the chance. What was he on the third row? All it would have taken is if the sun would have came out, or maybe a red flag early, could have maybe played off. But with there no wind today, humid, it's still like a light little drizzle. The track just didn't dry out very quick.
You look at Jay Gagne there looking at that tire, too. You and I questioned when we saw Matty Skoltz starting to pull away, and he had one particular lap early on. He was a second and a half faster than the guys behind him. if it did start drying up and he's pushing those slicks so hard, we wondered how long would those bad boys last if we did get a dry line.
And a lot could have changed in those last 5 laps if his rain tires were getting warm. You've seen Loris Baz out there looking for all the rain puddles, trying to keep it cool.
All right, well, you saw Matty Skoltz off the since he's been off the track, and he was talking about something jumping in front of him. I think we actually have video evidence of said deer. Let's take a look at this. Oh, little doe running across there. So that's a newer model. If mom or dad's in the neighborhood, they might be following very shortly thereafter. And again, trapped in here with the fence, that would not be a good thing to run into at any miles per hour.
No, not at all, definitely.
We were questioning if that was our wildlife. I was like, they've been here all week. The geese have been here, and they have a chance to get out. That deer did not. But, yeah, when wildlife are on the track, you and I have seen big deer jumping across riders' paths before. Let's go down to Jason Wygan real quick.
2 things to update you on. The slightest bit of drizzle in a while, so that could change this afternoon. Let me move to a better spot here. A little race within a race. Talked to Cam Peterson before that one. His goal was to wrap up 3rd in the series. He said he had to get 4th even if Loris Baz won. He did finish 4th. Baz got 2nd. So that's going to allow him to lock up 3rd. And he said then the goal is send it after that. So we might see a little more final race today.
Good call on that patient race and not even necessarily looking at the points until it came down to that last run. But that was a very good move by Cam Peterson. And there's the ice on the hand of Loris Baz. We know he's injured. We don't know how injured he is. And oftentimes, Roger, when you see a guy that's hurting at this top level, he doesn't want to let anybody else know how hurt he is. I'm not going to get it x-rayed if I even think it's broke.
Well, you just got to get ready. There's one more race. I think at the end of the day, he might not put the ice on it like that. But, you know, when you have 3 races in a race weekend as a rider, you're already thinking about the next race on the cool-down lap.
A lot of things to do here for the fans. That looks like a Yakosphere right there for me, Roger. I think that would be a purge factory. Oh, they got ice cream. They've got your lemon shake.
Shake up.
Lemon shake up probably over there. That's Roger's favorite if there's a fan that wants to do that. But, yeah, there's a lot of things to do here. We got a couple more minutes. Is that Max Van?
I think it is.
That looked like Max Van's
maybe.
gear or dryer, one or the other.
I'm getting sick just watching.
Oh, my gosh. Somebody take it off. Take it off now, please. Wind up. Boy, I'd be yakking. Holy smokes. Skoltz, Baz, Gagne. Peterson now will put on that charge. And I thought he was riding conservative. I was wondering why. There's the answer why for that points championship. Will finish in 3rd. Congratulations to him. Matty Skoltz solidifies himself up there in 2nd with this victory today. Don't know what kind of bonus he gets from the Westby team, but he either way, it's a feather in your cap. Started off the year with that win, and you felt happy for him because he tries so hard. He always gives credit to the team. Matt really hasn't thrown it down in practice and qualifying. We've seen him do it years before. You know, he would do that, and the first thing he would do is go, I want to apologize for my team for having to work so hard. They've been, as a team, working really hard for victories like this today.
Yeah, the team puts in a lot of effort, and plus, I think as a team guy, you want to see your rider hit the ground every once in a while, so you know he's out there pushing and riding to the best of his ability. And you know, him and the Westby team's been working together for a while now, and they got 2 wins this season. So it looks like they're getting some momentum headed into next year.
Loris, with all the focus in the world, Jake Gagne there as he's talking with Matt, there's a look of a champion that has no worries in the world. He's done everything this year. He's proved himself. Now he has one more opportunity, Roger, to break that record, and I think we might see a little more out of Jake even from the get-go, especially if it starts drying out. I mean, don't throw it away. Don't get hurt at the last race. But
any of these guys you can't count out in any condition.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. But, again, we're going to hear from our podium in just a second. Matty Skoltz with his 2nd win on the season.
Welcome back to Barber Motorsports Park after a shortened race 2 of the weekend, first race of today. It didn't really matter. Matthew Skoltz dominated, but here's why we had to shorten this race with the red flag. A deer came popping across the track, and MotoAmerica and Race Control did the right thing. Anybody coming through that corner, Jay, you just never can predict what's going to happen with a deer either. They could have turned and burned, and tried to set a lap time.
Do you remember when Rocco almost hit deer last year? 2 deer jumped out in front of him in, I believe, warm-up for Junior Cup last year. Here's the results, Greg. Matthew Schultz, 7.5-second win over Loris Baz. Gagne, third. Think he'll know where to go? I don't third.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure.
Down there. Cam Peterson, fourth. Jake Lewis, Yates, Kyle Wyman, Bobby Fong, and Hector Barber are going to run out your top 9, 10th place. Look a little bit further back. So, yeah.
Let's get right down to Hannah in Victory Lane.
Guys, yesterday we saw Matthew Schultz lead quite a few laps in the heavy rain, but that victory was not meant to be. Today, he took the lead early on, and you controlled that race from start to finish nearly. How good does this victory feel after how close you were yesterday?
I mean, it feels awesome after screwing up yesterday with 1.5 laps to go. It broke my heart. But yeah, I'm just really happy to be up here and kind of show that I can put the Westby R1 up in first. Well done to Baz and to Jake. I know they were battling hard, which kind of helped me out slightly. Just really looking forward to the third race, and hopefully we have similar conditions, because it seems that's the only time that anyone's beating Jake. So we'll see what happens. But just one more time, thank you to the Westby crew and everyone for coming out. I know that the weather hasn't been great, but the turnout's awesome. Thank you, guys.
Back on top, Matthew Schultz. Guys.
Listen, I don't want to correct Matthew Schultz, okay, but I don't think today the battling of Baz and Gagne and Peterson helped his cause of winning this race.
Mattered.
He was so fast.
And now Jake just heard him say the only time we can beat him is. So now Gagne is going to go back with Stamboli and try to come up with a better package for the second race.
Let's get right back down to Hannah.
Well, yesterday, Loris Baz was starting from the very back of the grid. Today, a much better starting position and one better finishing position than yesterday as well. With this race being shortened, I know you're fighting through some soreness, some minor injuries here. How does this help you prepare for the race this afternoon?
Well, it was a strange race. I was about to put the slick rear on the grid, and we talked with the crew, and it was a big race mainly for the grid position race free. So we just decided to go with the wet, and I think it was the right choice. But I had those conditions with the drying line, with the wet tire, the bike just floating a lot, and I had no feeling from the turn one. I just tried to stay with Matthew, but he had more corner speed than me. So yeah, I just tried to bring it home. No crash for once this weekend, so it's good for my body. And I try again this afternoon, hopefully with more rain or a dry track. I mean, whatever. But I just hope we don't have this half-half condition. Big thanks to all the guys from Ducati and Ducati New York doing an amazing job this weekend, repairing the bike every time I put it on the grass. So I owe them some beers tonight.
Well, congratulations, Loris. 2 podiums so far this weekend, and later he'll have one more chance to finally get that elusive victory he's been looking for all season.
No question. And Jason, he's in a lot more pain than he shows, but he always has a smile on his face no matter what happens. It's such a pleasure to have in this paddock.
Yeah, he really is. He's such a good addition to our paddock, Greg, and hopefully we're going to see him back next year. Some of that alcohol tonight will probably make him feel a little bit better as well.
Yeah. Right back down to Hannah.
Third place today, back on the podium, is Jake Gagne. After yesterday's wild ride, you're able to put it back up here. Take us through your battle for third with Cameron Peterson.
Yeah, it's man, I feel bad for Cam. I know he kind of got screwed there, lapping Josh. Josh was on those slicks though, rolling the dice. But hats off to Matt and the Westby team. These guys earned it today. He came to win after yesterday. I know that, and he took off from the beginning, And there was some sections I was kind of struggling. I was hanging back behind Baz, wondering what was going to happen. See how dry it was going to get. But yeah, we brought it home in third. I'm happy after yesterday's chaos, and we got another one this afternoon. So thanks to the fans for sticking it out in this rain, this crazy weather, and we'll put on another show this afternoon.
Congrats, Jake. Thanks.
Still the smile on his face on the podium. Jake Gagne, Jason, still rolling along this season as our national champ. And yeah, he sees the whole field, doesn't he? He knew what happened to Cameron Peterson in that one, but I kind of like the strategy that Josh Aaron had with the slicks. Man, it could have paid off. And you could see that even Baz was and his team were grappling with the idea of putting a rear slick on. So that's how that decision was. It was difficult to make, no question about it. All right, we're going to step away from Barber Motorsports Park. Our coverage will continue. MotoAmerica Superbikes at Alabama as it rolls on.
Jake doesn't look too concerned there, Roger Hayden, on that victory. But I mean, it is kind of hard to find that third box instead of the first box. But he does just that. That's the first time he's been on the podium this year that it wasn't that top step.
Yeah, it's been a really off weekend for Jake Gagne this weekend.
A weekend that most would die for. You know, it's like, hey, just
I'm not sure what's going on with him.
Yeah, I know. I hope he still got it. I hope he still got it with one more race to go. But I love seeing the smile on Matt Skolt's face. And Loris Baz, and we heard that decision that even he was thinking about. It wasn't time, but it still got you thinking about it. But, you know, may as well go into a slick. If it was dry, if the sun was out, like you said, those variables, the wind was blowing, might have worked in their favor. It wasn't really close.
And the risky thing, too, you run into with that is that there's another race this afternoon.
Yeah.
So now you've kind of screwed yourself for this afternoon because your starting spot now.
Yeah, you, with it being a 2-race day, that definitely affects you. If it were, you know, a typical weekend, this was our Sunday, you'd be done. You live and die by that one race. But if you do this and you have the poor result, you're going to have to suffer from your starting spot in the next one. Jake Lewis, Ashton Yates, 5th and 6th. What do you think about them? 2 stock 1000s up there leading guys like Kyle Wyman on a Superbike, Bobby Fong, Hector Barbera. I mean, that's pretty good.
That's really impressive, especially for those guys. But they were fast right away, and for them, maybe this afternoon, with all the Superbike Cup, could be their last race. They might go for it a little more.
Another trophy to bring back to the Westby Pack. Oh, Jay Gagne handing out his trophy to a fan. That's cool. That's good. What are you going to do with it? You know, you can bring it back on the plane.
Eventually, what are you going to? A guy like him who's had a career Jake Gagne's had, there's only so many trophies you can put in your house.
Yeah, this is true. But
and also for a fan, I mean, they're going to be a fan for the rest of their life.
Yeah, they'll remember forever. I mean, he's already won 16 first-place trophies. This is his first non-first-place trophy, and you're exactly right. You'll remember it forever. Well, they've got to get ready to go race again later on today. Hopefully the weather will hold off. It is looking like it's a little darker in the mid portion of our course here. Maddie's still having fun. What puts a better taste in your mouth, doesn't it, Roger? When yesterday you had it all to win and he tossed it down the track by himself in the rain. Today he does it. I mean, he gets out in front, pulls away, and like you said, Greg called it. You know, it wasn't just because it was wet and you were fast out there or those guys were bound behind you. Matty Scholes pushed harder, and he deserved that win.
Yeah, he definitely deserved it. You could tell right away. He could have won yesterday. Put his head down early, got a nice gap, and did what he had to do. And for him and the team, it's exactly what they needed. They kind of mid-season hit a little bit of a, not a slump, but struggled a little bit more previous than they did in the beginning of the season. So it's really good to see those teams get a win.
Well, I guess there's the answer, Roger, on whether it's going to rain or not. Looking back, that looks like it is raining. Not only raining, but raining hard back at Barber once again. So all of our other classes, everybody but the Stock 1000s are going to race again. Now there's a good shot of the puddle. No doubt about the slicks. Those are not going to be options, but they were bringing out the crew in between. We've got breaks in today. We're going to wrap up our Fox show and the HONOS Superbikes, and I'll get coffee time with Josh Hayes here in just a bit. Send it back to the guys next door.
Today's Superbike race coverage has been sponsored by Geico Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car or motorcycle insurance. By Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. And by HONOS, the apparel brand promoting talent within the adrenaline sports realm.
Back here at Barber Motorsports Park, Trig Westby on the podium with his rider, Matthew Skoltz, after a good victory. And Jason, we're just looking at these live shots.
Here it comes.
Here comes the rain again.
Yeah.
Wow. But let's look at our next best story, because Hannah has a very special guest down with her who's had a great weekend so far. Hannah?
Ashton Yates flying the flag for our Stock 1000 riders this weekend. He finished 6th overall in today's race. You were running really well in yesterday's race as well in the weather. Tell us about it. What is it that makes you so good in the rain?
Yeah, honestly, I was just kind of, riding around out there. It felt good. The Honda is really working good in the water, and yeah, we're just doing our best. I'm really looking forward to this afternoon to maybe get another top 5 if I can. And honestly, wouldn't be able to do it without my granddad and Jones Honda, HJC, Speedy. A lot of those guys, a lot of sponsors that made it happen for me this year. And yeah, we're just out there riding in the rain, having fun.
Yesterday we saw some really heavy rain. This race not so much, but this afternoon's looking like the weather's going to pick back up again. Is there anything that you were able to learn from yesterday's race that'll better prepare you for this afternoon?
Yeah, honestly, I think I prefer it a little more wet. This last race, it was starting to dry out. The bike was starting to move around a good bit. And the Honda's really been working good in all wet conditions. So if it's like that, it should be a pretty good race. And yeah, let's put that Honda on the podium.
Now, our Stock 1000 motorcycles do have electronic capabilities a little bit different from the Superbikes, but what are you able to adjust to better serve you in these inclement conditions?
Yeah, there's traction control, and you got to run traction control in the 1000, or you'll end up on your butt. So we run that, and that's good enough for me, honestly. That's all I run. So.
With a really strong showing here this weekend, being the last race of the season, you know, it is silly season. There's a lot of talk of plans for next year. What is your overall hope, or do you have any plans set in stone yet?
Yeah, you know, we don't have anything set in stone. You know, we're just trying to finish the season, see what happens. But, you know, obviously I'd love to be on a Honda again. We've been really making some progress this year. And I'd like to get, you know, had a few mishaps this year, and I'd like to get a season with some testing and a good package and get some good results, and maybe go after a Stock 1000 Championship or something next year. So that's what we're hoping.
Well, thank you so much, Ashton. Best of luck out there this afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you back here next year. Guys?
Yeah, so that's Ashton Yates, of course. The bloodline of this legendary duo right here. There's Lucky on your left and Aaron on the right on that Jones Honda. And boy, I like to hear that Ashton Yates thinks that if it's going to rain, he can put this thing on the podium in a HONOS Superbike race. That would be awesome.
He was fourth yesterday. Another good run today. If you get a chance, follow this kid on Instagram. All of his supermoto stuff is really fun to watch, and does a lot of posting on there. So, but he is one of our top Stock 1000 contenders, and you know, Superbike this year or this weekend, 4th and 6th so far. Pretty good showings.
Well, it was a 12-lap race, but let's take a look at some race highlights and see how this one unfolded, Jason. It was a good one right off the start.
Yeah, it was. You can see Cam Peterson got that bullet start that we've been able to see him get last couple of days. Matthew Skultz slots in behind him early. That wouldn't last long. As you can see, Gagne starting to make his way forward as well. Skultz would take the lead from Cam Peterson on the exit there of Charlotte's Web, and he would go on and just continue to pull away. These guys would try to go with him, and it just weren't quite capable. But Loris Baz made some moves very early. We can see Josh Herron here. He tried to make a decision to hopefully go out on those slick tires, and it would dry. It just didn't pay off, and you can see him. The leaders kind of caught up to him here, but man, to go out there, it had to be a little bit hard for him. And you can see this is that little area where Cam just got into the side of Herron. Herron did everything he could to get out of the way of those guys, but that's where Gagne was able to get through. Matthew Skultz, what a strange season he's had. You know, today, 5 laps to go. This guy had the race won super easy, and then we see this on track like we've seen here before at Barber. And that's
Bambi on the gas.
Yeah, MotoAmerica does the right thing, gets the red flag out. At this stage, Matthew Skultz, he's still kind of wondering, is it over? Is the race done? And he wasn't quite sure yet, but he ends up getting the win.
Gagne knew the rules and was like, yeah, it's over, you won. Continuing with the championship points, obviously Gagne with the #1 plate, and you can see Matthew Skultz comfortably in 2nd place over Cameron Peterson. We have 1 round left in this championship, and Bobby Fong and Josh Herron are kind of duking it out there for 5th spot. It'll be interesting to see what happens later on today as we are set for Superbike race number 2 of the day, race number 3 of the weekend, and our final race of the 2021 season at 4 o'clock local time. So Jay, final thoughts on the race today. It was complicated to pick tires, and it was a drying line, but
it's starting to rain again a little bit now, so we'll have to see what it's going to be like in a few hours. It's been a crazy weekend. It's kind of a fun weekend to call the races because we're seeing some new guys get up front. We're seeing some of our Superbike Cup guys being pretty racy, as you saw with Jake Lewis and Ashton Yates again today. But you know, for the fans out there, I hope it stays dry so that they don't have to keep hiding under those umbrellas. But you know, the forecast doesn't look great, so these guys are going to go back, make some adjustments, try to improve one race left in the season for us, Greg. Crazy to think that we've gone through this year as quickly as we have, and it's a great place to end it here at Barber Motorsports.
Well, that'll do it for this race. Matthew Skultz will be on pole position when we do it again in HONOS Superbike next to Loris Baz and Jake Gagne. What kind of race do we have coming up for you? It'll be 6 p.m. East on FS1. For Hannah Lopa and Jason Pridmore, I'm Greg White. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again in a couple hours.